All right, I'm gonna start getting our deck, at least on the front end, set up. So I gotta start with the post base. But in order to find these exact measurements, now there's a couple different ways you can do it. For these ones, the surveyor actually had pins right on the corners, which tend to be just a slight bit off. I mean, you're within a 1/4 inch. But the best way that we know how to do it is if we're wanting to come off of this wall, what we did is threw some blocks in on the wall. You could see here. We took a string and came off, and that's just so it doesn't hit any of the studs. So we added a block. And so from the outside of that block to the outside of the wall on this edge, which is exactly where the very corner of our post wants to line up, or at least that's where we want it to line up, so that our roof could carry out exactly the same coming out here. So we put blocks to keep the strings off of the studs, brought the string through to hit and get a mark out here. We know we want to be 6 feet off of that block wall, so we put a tape measure, bumped it 6 feet, got a mark there, made a cross mark, gave us the exact spot where we want the corner of our post. From there, we could find the rest of the post base placements by running strings and running tape measures, making sure that everything is square. We do our 3, 4, 5 off of everything to make sure that each of these corners is laid out exactly square. So what we do to find our heights for the posts is, first of all, getting this set up priority. Set up a laser on the top of the wall so that we can then take our tape measure from the top of that post base up. We know that height from the floor down to there, and then we already have our height of the wall. So that is exactly where we want to go, minus the height of our beam at the top. That is where our post will be cut off. Well, I've got the 2 corners set where I want them. I've got them tightened down. I have not set that middle one yet, but until we stand up this wall, that's about as far as I can go, because I need to tie off my porch or my deck to the wall, but I don't have any sheathing to tie off to yet. So I'm gonna go ahead and hold off here. I'm gonna go to the back deck and start setting my posts there. As you can see, we do have a pin here, and we've got one in every one of these, but I like to double check with my string anyways. So I've got my string attached to this wall, kind of going at an angle so it keeps it nice and tight to the wall. So I know when I pull my string down, I'm gonna be at least 7/16, typically about a 1/2 inch with air gap and everything. By the time I pull that tight, I should be about a 1/2 inch, which is what I've got here. You can see my string. You pull it tight, hit the wall, make sure you don't go too far, just barely touch. It looks pretty good. So I'll take a tape measure and bump my block, make sure that is exactly 8 feet off of there, and that's where I'll set my post. I've got going here is I've measured 1 inch from the outside, which I'm gonna hold my girder ledger back 1 inch because I like to have 1 inch overhang on my decking, and I don't want to go past my posts and try to do all that wrapping around the front of the post and the sides. It's just easier if I can just kind of dive right into the post and call it a day. So I'm going to hold everything back 1 inch. I've attached this sideboard because this is the way that it planes in. But I've got these decorative pieces. It's just 2x4 treated. I've cut a 22.5 degree bevel on it, and I've measured down the size of my girder, which is a 2x8, and I'm going to place this, rather than trying to toenail everything in or hangering off of this post, I'm going to have a piece that'll catch it. I will timber screw into it, 2 4-inch timber screws, one at the top, one at the bottom, and then my double rim will sit on that, and that will carry the weight of all of my deck joists as we continue framing this deck. I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but that's hanging up just a little bit, so it's a little high on that top edge. So I'll show you what I'm gonna do to go ahead and fix that problem. I've got my oscillator here, and I'm just gonna oh man, that looks like $1 million. Some 3-inch deck screws. Once I get my double girder on, I'll then take some timber screws and pre-drill and go into the edges so that it is solidly attached to these posts. I don't ever want it going anywhere or thinking that it's going to go anywhere. So I'm going to attach both ends and away we go. Alright, what we've got going here on this front part, you can kind of see this. We're going to make a timber frame truss to carry our ridge beam for this front porch. And so these here represent our standard 2x8 rafters. And all this inside here would be our timber frame. And we're using 3x8 rough sawn lumber. So I'm trying to figure out what the height of my posts on the exterior of the deck need to be here and here. And so to the top of the wall, all the way down to the bottom of our post is this on this side. And then 179.5, it's a little glary right there, on the other side. So I need to deduct from those numbers the height of our rough sawn 3x8, which is roughly 8 1/8 inches. So I need to take 8 1/8 inches off of these. That'll be the height of my posts here. Measure off of the brick or the block. You want to make sure that this side here could be 6 feet off of those blocks.
Yes, sir.
Tracy's dog chewed that off. So now we don't have a little handle to... Uh-oh. I think it's time for a new string. Well, first we got to get our center point, and then I'll show you how to use it.
Which our center point is that measurement over there.
8 foot 6 1/4.
Yep.
Okay.
Easy as pie.
Easy as pie.
57 1/8.
1/8 minus 1 5/8 equals maybe a half. $55 1/2 plus the height of our handrail. I'm gonna make this thing go 37 inches. Well, let's make it 38.
Why did you subtract into 5/8?
I subtracted 1 5/8 inches because from the floor to where my laser level is 1 5/8.
Got it.
It's actually going to be wrong because we're going to be down here. We're lowering this
Got it.
to have a step out.
All right.
So I'm going to have this a little bit lower. I got to go back to the back and remember what height I put that at.
Got it.
6 inches.
6.
6 inches lower
Okay.
is our,
So
our one step down.
Does that mean you just subtract 6 from that
from
whole
that
thing?
total. That would give us
Exactly what we needed. There it is.
that's the height of our middle post. You don't even have a good spot to click it in there.
Go square fishing.
You might need to jump down there.
No.
Nice. When you drop something, you don't want to get down and get it. You go square fishing. He caught a big one today, boys.
Whoa. Hey, y'all. I like to start not on the very end on this side, but one joist down. so that kind of just evens this and this out. So if I go from this end, it's really only taking this one and barely this one, but in the middle, it's kind of evening everything out. So I like to start there, put this thing in, you pull the trigger, and it spreads these little prongs out, and you put it in between your board, you close it, and then you shove in, and it's its own spacer on these, and it keeps it the right height so that when you put these in and screw them down, well, if you have the right bit in, keeps everything spaced really well. And the bit itself has a stop so that it doesn't go too deep and you don't strip it up. So that's simple as it gets. And if you're too tight here, I just go to the other end and pull it out. Likewise, if it is not tight enough, I take a lever and shove it in. Super simple. If you don't hold it down, it tends to flip up on you like this and go off of its spacing. And I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but it's better to keep it down, keep everything exactly how it's supposed to be so that it works. Right here close to the end, it gets a little harder to gap it the way I need it to be, or to close it in if it's bowed out that way. So what I like to do is basically, if I can and it won't ruin the deck board, is either take the curl of my hammer or take a pry bar and, you know, kind of bend it out. I do whatever I can. I don't damage the board in any way. So if it will, I kind of have to think of something else. Like this one, I didn't want to damage it. It was really tight, so I would have to hammer my pry bar in, or that, into the board, and it kind of would damage it. So I just decided that I was going to shove this fairly hard, kind of bang it with my hand, and I got it in there. And you can tell that it's perfectly spaced when these two flaps down here hit your deck board perfectly flat, and that's how you can tell that it's spaced the way you want it. So because it went that way, I decided that's exactly what I need. I don't need to take my pry bar or do any other quote-unquote drastic measures.
Hey, thanks for following along as we build on this channel. If you're enjoying yourself, you're learning a thing or two, subscribe. Hit that notification bell so that you can get the notifications when we put out new videos, and enjoy the rest of the build.